So yeah, no, since that game's just started, I guess we just therefore gonna be continuing with another recorded game. You might actually do just the second from the same session. They played a second game right after, so I guess might just as well do that. But okay, let's therefore go for the second game that coincidentally got played also on the same map on Frozen Waste, but this time it's gonna be apparently one gold version. No, and also Kvoth is gonna be this time playing Oranos as opposed to the Gaia. I'm mentally thinking that really the Gaia was a kind of problem, especially in Kvoth's hands, as he is, well, practically the best guy around. Don't think there's any kind of question about it too much. He really is quite a bit experienced with her, and he's able to do all kinds of things with her. But nonetheless, the gold slightly open shouldn't be a problem, really. If you're gonna be having somewhat of a similar gameplay as in the previous one, then theoretically some small raiding with animals and whatnot. But it shouldn't be anything that dangerous. You can see right now the gold mine for Magyar. Also somewhat of a similar position. Forest is gonna be continuing here, so therefore some kind of maybe temple at the back or a short wall shouldn't be entirely that compromisable. But he's not gonna be having too much of an easy position of gold and TC on the right. We're gonna have to wait what's gonna happen on the left, or have to wait. I guess he can just gonna do it immediately now because we don't have, of course, the observer here, since this wasn't kind of like played with one, just kind of like played as and streamed as a POV on Magyar stream, and that's a pretty good combo. That's a very nice gold for him. Could be easy second TC. I do wonder if he's gonna be trying the second TC now. I cannot think not. It's probably gonna be played somewhat similarly as the first game, but the difference will be that Oranos is gonna be a bit more dangerous in the classical age than Gaia. Of course, having the Valor in there, the faster units are gonna be also playing a role, allowing for easier and better maneuvering. So I do wonder if maybe Magyar is gonna be having some more complications because of that. Or if he's gonna be able to handle it as well. Can see right now Eye of Horus for better TC slots, nice. That's a very good bonus. And the second, Fetters of Fenrir, that's a bit dangerous exactly against the set, for the set of course. So you better be keeping that, picking it up as soon as possible. And this time actually bringing the relic home, as opposed to what was happening in the previous game, where he just kind of like traveled with the relic so long that it then fell in the middle of the battle, somewhere in the middle of the map, but well, in the end, Kvoth wasn't interested in that either. It wasn't that much of a game-breaking relic for that specific matchup that we had in the last game. Okay, so some kind of novelties, not much. You can say now Temple doesn't entirely seem to be working as some kind of protection of anything. Which is maybe a bit of a shame here. Really expecting that dropping it here to the bottom would be a pretty good idea. Blocking any kind of Turma raiding. That probably will be at least slightly attempted at the start. I'm expecting... somewhat of actually, can see right now heavy scouting currently going on by Magyar. I mean, practically animals absolutely everywhere, which is nice to see. Can see how we spread out completely all across the map. Controlling right now even on the walrus in the mid, further goats on the left side. I mean, like, you don't have anything else to do in the early game, so you might just as well focus on a bit of microing of your animals. At least shouldn't be any intensive focus for your APM in the early stages of the game. Not really, but still kinda curious if he's gonna be picking this up or not. Because if Kvoth somehow managed to get his hands on it, and he right now does have of course the Valor, so it's gonna be possible a bit easier, then just not gonna be able to raid all that much in the beginning. Or practically at all, as the villagers would just murder him up and down. Very simply. There we go. It's gonna be Magyar, but in the end he's gonna be actually carrying it to the opponent, because he wants to be going with Amenemnisu into a raid, same as he did in the last game. Can see very purposefully also going in for the, not for the hunt possibly. Yeah, there's no escaping for you. Or is there? Can actually heal him. Theoretically maybe could have. But nonetheless, Pharaoh is gonna be all right now in place. That means the villagers will be having at least a kind of slight delay here. If you're gonna be switching into Kvoth, then he's obviously through as well. By the way, did he advance there for now or a bit earlier? Nah, he was going for a minute advance. I was kind of thinking that it just like don't remember hearing the gong just now. So that's an interesting plan. Complete blockage of the gold. I wasn't expecting anything else there. And, well, of course it's gonna be at least maybe slightly helping Magyar because the path that the units have to be taken from the back of the base, that's gonna be just like instantly some 5-10 seconds extra before they even get into the battlefield. And it's something that can therefore help you out here and there. But Animus ready. Taunting with that damn Fetters of Fenrir relic in his hands. But nonetheless, Isagi doesn't entirely care too much. He's not therefore going to be focusing on the animals too seriously. Just some kind of early raid and that's practically it. Not gonna be wanting to do anything else. And this is already quite a bit useful. I mean, like, look at what kind of idle time this is causing. They have to be walking back, which is slow for the Atlantean. 3 villages on top of it. So this actually does play a role. Even just like scaring them away like that. Not a bad play at all. So you're gonna be having both walruses and apparently even some berries. Doesn't want to be having too many villages on that one source only. Again, so as in the first game, he does gonna pay a bit of attention to spreading the villages out a bit. So that you don't have all of them in only one spot. And he was actually, interestingly, not shifting to the base, but rather where he does have the army. That's curious. Fortunately, gonna be right now messing up the conversion of the walrus. But it was really unconventional shift in sand at this point. Not going for the help of the TC and the towers, but rather with starting army, which could have been a bit risky because he doesn't have that much of a strong one in the first place. Practically just Pharaoh and Wadjet. The rest are, no, well, easy to get rid of. Maybe he's also counting with the villages a bit on some belief fighting, possibly. Oh, that was actually a smart plan by Magyar. You can see he immediately saw what the heroes are going to be doing to Mr. Wadjet, and therefore he was trying to... I'm thinking he was trying to even block the path in there. He just kind of wasn't reacting fast enough. If he reacted immediately, he probably could have done that. But nonetheless, hero gone, and that means Wadjet surviving, and that's very important, because Wadjet does have regeneration. So if he's gonna be careful on him, you can say it now, that's gonna be that 1 hit point per... yeah, 1 hit point per second. Just for a minute, he's gonna be standing around, and suddenly he's gonna be at 100 hit points. That was a really nice little play in there, my Magyar, saving that myth unit for himself. But he probably could be also using healing on Amenemnisu currently. Sheep is just probably standing him still and let's heal. Don't think really at this point that relic is gonna be as important. We have already gotten past that like piece of the game practically. And if he really doesn't have any kind of schemes on using animals in the late game, then you'll be fine. Doesn't need to be taking care of it too much. That's just like little Prometheans. Checking out what's going on here to the south. You can see it now, double mining camps. Yes, please. Miracle Man was doing it yesterday. Miracle Man was doing it a lot. And not only yesterday, I'm thinking that even in previous matches. I wonder if maybe he got inspired therefore by Magyar, or if maybe somebody finally listened to our streams, since I keep complaining about it for years and years, and people are constantly ignoring it. No, well, to their detriment. They don't want to improve on the game and in the game. That's their problem. But yep, that's gonna be good efficiency and increased gathering rate. Therefore, in the end, for just a bit of a little investment of the villager time to build the next mining camp. And of course, for the egg, it's even free. So it's literally just the villager time you have to be somewhat considering. But well, at any rate, we are going to be therefore going probably through the population limit. 73 for Kvoth. That's not entirely that much for 8.5 minutes of game time for an Atlantean. We have 81 currently for Magyar. Probably could be getting like some kind of small house or whatnot to block the path in, or wall chip maybe even. Just to make sure that nobody's gonna be passing through that spot that easily. Or maybe does he have it on purpose, looking at the tower there and how directly it's shooting into it. I mean, like, it will be probably next level, but I'm not gonna be assuming that is the case Just kinda thinking somewhat random position of the barracks, and he just kinda like didn't entirely think the things through as much. Don't really think so. You can see no upgrade so far for Magyar as far as the military goes. And he's having still one barracks or some more? No, that's the second. It's gonna be armory, of course. Villages are going to be having nothing on them. Curious. As on the other side, it might not be too different with the... yeah, just the pickaxe. With the 4-minute advance, you're usually not gonna be having, of course, that much of a spending spree morale on the economical ups. Gonna be much better to be keeping your units and especially villages auto queue going without interrupting yourself, and just like trusting your unit control that you're not gonna be having too high losses to miss potentially the economical improvements in a few minutes. Can I do wonder if maybe he could be trying to maybe separate one of the priests and start collecting maybe a few of the remaining animals on the map, because he still could be getting himself some good hunt right next to the base TC. I think it would be a pretty, solid plan, an idea for him. Pickaxe and medium spearman, nice. It's gonna be at least some kind of nice help, but to be thinking, oh, actually he already has medium slingers. It's actually because I'm not entirely too used to slingers, because most of the games that you see are gonna be involving basically like straight heroic, and therefore mostly Migdol units. And if you're gonna be in the already heroic age with Migdol units, you usually gonna be having very limited reason to be going for slingers in any kind of way. They are very chiefly classical age unit for classical fights. Then later they just kind of like don't entirely make as much of a sense, because they just having way too low DPS, and it's gonna be much better to be having the charioteers, even though they are not straight counters, but they just gonna excel against everything, and they are made extremely quickly and everything, so it's just like good unit. Good unit indeed. No, and nobody's gonna be making things like, I don't know, should be making some peltas possibly, but whatever. That's gonna be basically the same fate as the slingers then. Also a unit that barely anybody makes. Even though exactly peltas, if you're gonna be talking in context of chariots, actually are pretty good. If you can be having a bit of micro in your hand, then they deal with charioteers incredibly quickly. Okay, that's I'm thinking a bit of a actually scary shockwave. That could have been possibly, I'm thinking, played a bit better by Magyar, because you can see those guys that jump to the top. Thinking you should have targeted them onto the Turmas instead of going back on the Murmilos. And by the way, right now into the middle of the battle mediums. Gonna be getting some easy kills in there. With a bit of BD fighting as well, it looks like, by Magyar, but not entirely that intense, because obviously you have to be controlling them all. So in the meantime, he's gonna be using the opportunity to steal himself a TC. Pharaoh dead. But nonetheless, the battle is gonna be in the end somewhat of a victory. Did cause some idling. You can say now, for example, the villages here coming back, but I don't think it was entirely that bad. It was somewhat solid victory, and hopefully will be there for allowing the TC to come up. But of course, without empowerment, at this point Magyar needs to be doing his best to keep the enemy units from pivoting to the left. He just needs to be moving to the right side somehow. Unfortunately, didn't entirely do that properly. Now that means that, nope, you are not getting that one just yet. So, are we gonna be having the opposite guard of the previous game? Right now it's gonna be Kvoth trying to block Magyar from getting a TC. Maybe. Let's see how successful he's going to be with that. Nice to be seen when the extra budgets here. But unfortunately, they've been right now caught in quite a bad spot with Turma right nearby. And that was still with the starting budget. Okay, we don't unfortunately see it. We've already had more walruses than that, so not sure. Maybe one of those still was the starting one or not. And of course the Kero Ballista are gonna be currently a bit annoying. As, I mean, like, sure, slingers are somewhat interesting against them, but as you can see, he's also sending the villages to help out with those. But it might be a bit more curious to, of course, try to get into Heroic Age and finally some camels or whatever. But yeah, well, that's easier said than done, as currently we are gonna be having quite a bit of a locked battle in the Classical with Magyar. Not entirely being too close to the Heroic Age, and you can see even the pop limit being quite a bit problematic at 80 pop with 100 for Kvoth, but of course also no advance whatsoever. Which, by the way, brings me randomly to a change in Age of Empires 2. It seems like, if I'm not mistaken, currently on PUP, on Test in Realm, then they're gonna be adding bonus for villages against rams. So basically the same as we have here in Titans, bonus of villages against siege weapons. They're gonna be introducing it into Age of Empires 2. Again, I think it's only against rams, but still. It's either there or Age of Empires 4. Currently I think it's 2. I think it's into 2, but nonetheless, one of those two is gonna be adding it. Which is somewhat interesting. Somewhat interesting, because it has been quite a bit of a contested part of the Titans expansion. There have been some discussions if it should be even actually removed. So yeah, especially with Atlanteans, I think that was the talk. It's really kind of like hard to attack them, as they have the strong villages, so therefore they really destroy the siege weapons very quickly, as opposed to the normal villages potentially. But nonetheless, it's kind of like an, I guess, part of the game, so it's not entirely like breaking anything too seriously. People are able to play with it anyway, so not sure if there's any kind of reason to really touch it in Age of Mythology currently. Just nonetheless, you're gonna be having some quite nice portion of currently Chaos. That's already getting quite a bit at this point bad for Magyar. You can say now Kvoth is gonna be at least popped. Not entirely aiming for a new TC yet, so kinda like strong to say that he's gonna be heading for Heroic, because he's still gonna be having some heavy losses here, it looks to me. And you can see quite nice wills to help out with even some wall-in, which is actually very smart, because it could be almost instantaneously disengaging, especially the Kairos, and protecting them, because they are quite a bit fragile to any kind of surprise attacks. So this is nicely played. Now he's gonna be switching into Magyar, who though did find himself the resources to go into Nephthys, and this is very important because this probably could be reason for ancestors right like beyond them. Even with the hero citizens here, still would be able to destroy probably most of the Cairo Ballistae. And much more problematically for Kvoth, he's gonna be able to get something like maybe camels to help out, to really just kind of like neutralize the Kairos completely. No, and of course the chariot archers on top of it, that's gonna be also further nonsense. But well, for that, we first gonna have to be having a need for a Migdol, which is apparently not entirely that evident now, as far as the resources on his account. Can say it now gonna be having literally just shaft mine, nothing else yet. Just barely starting with the farms, not even any kind of, oh, at least some goats with husbandry. As on the other side of the map, that's gonna be Hendak's pickaxe. No plow yet for Kvoth. And that's the heroic. No. But of course, no Migdol. Potentially Scorpion Man could be also quite nice addition for him, but he doesn't have the monuments. So that's not gonna be entirely too useful and helpful. With Ancestors in the end, cast actually to protect the TC, because at this point, well, that's what he was attempting a bit earlier, but currently doesn't have empowerment again. And you can see actually how much of a pain it is for an Eggy to finish a TC if he doesn't have empowerment. But on the other hand, if you do have empowerment, then it's just like turbo easy. So it's kind of a bit of an extreme, battle of extremes for the Egyptians. But yeah, if they don't have the Pharaoh there, it is a bit of a problem. Nonetheless, he did manage to right now get the town center finally under control, which is important because of the super gold mine that he has right next to it. Gonna be pretty easy right now to drop. Not only that, but I was going to say maybe even the Migdol here. But it's gonna be coming through, right? Good. Good. It's gonna be there for safer. And 9 Kairos. That's getting actually a bit too high for Kvoth. Should be already stopping with it. Okay, second TC for him. Turmas there. Can't say it now, the Kairos here. No, I'm thinking that at this point there's not much of a reason to be getting more Kairos. Because like 9 Cairo Ballistae already is gonna be quite a nice army. That's gonna be dealing with practically any kind of infantry that's gonna be coming against him. And now he's gonna be risking. He's gonna be a bit opening himself to the counter units, like maybe some kind of higher amount of chariots or a high amount of maybe even camels. So is the giraffe gonna be winning or not here? Nah, she won't. Murderer of the animals here, Mr. Murmillo, but nonetheless he's gonna get apparently... Oh well, maybe not. But in the next battle, he's gonna get killed almost instantaneously, as he's gonna be having some good raid by Kvoth on the left gold mine. That definitely could be using some protection as well from Magyar. Maybe it could be just enough to drop a tower here. I kinda guessing so. Like maybe like 1-2 towers. Probably doesn't even have to be a Migdol, possibly. If he doesn't necessarily want to. And maybe if he doesn't have even... Oh well, he does a favor currently. It's also maybe interesting to think about. And of course then potentially there could be some kind of edge in case Kvoth, once he advances into Heroic Age, wanted to be going for the cavalry again. Then crenellations are only useful on towers as far as the bonus damage. It's useful for also extra track rating for the other buildings, so that you're not gonna be able to dodge the projectiles as well, but the increased damage is only for the towers. Okay, that's definitely looking like a TC number 3. There we go. Otherwise, military-wise, you're gonna be having at least copper shields. On the other hand, nothing yet. So you're gonna be switching therefore into Kvoth, who is finally gonna be advancing to the next age. No, and this time it's gonna be Theia. No experimentation with Freya, which, by the way, in the last game, I really also don't think that it did as much for him, the Rhea, in there. Therefore, maybe it could have been really better just to go for the Theia there as well. But, well, nonetheless, didn't happen. But this time, it is going to be the case. With villages, therefore, that will be the baseline at least. Still need to be getting a bit deeper and having actually pretty good resources on him. So I guess you're gonna be expecting some immediate upgrade after the advance, or is he gonna be jumping straight myth? I kinda don't think so this time around. He's gonna be still probably having to play the Heroic Age fight against Magyar for a bit. And also a bit of a problem with the high amount of chaos that he has is that it's kinda like more of a defensive army. It's not as much of an army that can be sieged somewhere, because again, because of the fragility of the, I don't know, some kind of back attack, or attack into the back. Because of course, as you're gonna be having so many chaos, they are 4 pop. So that means that you're gonna be having fairly low screening force of the Murmillos in front or anything else. So therefore, much easier to be making your path around. No, but at least Magyar is gonna be currently blocked, and that was apparently trying to get a funny Migros so that he can block the TC from Kvoth. Starting to remind us of certain game, right? Even more directly now. So is it gonna be again fight for the TC of Kvoth? For the second time in a row? Maybe. Maybe it will be. But well, copper weapons ready therefore for Kvoth. Doesn't have too many resources otherwise. And so far the gold mine is, or gold mine TC rather. And frankly, even the gold mine, considering the proximity of each other, not going to be his yet. But yeah, this is actually very important for the positioning of the economy. He still is controlling pretty well right now, called the right gold mines through the TC as well. So the map was somewhat kind to him as far as that goes. So that's not gonna be a problem. Maybe some kind of slightly more challenging positions for Magyar a bit, but also not entirely by much. Not by much, no, and where you have therefore some kind of positioning against the Chaos. Should be right now just gonna send in the siege tower into the middle exactly, so that Kvoth is not gonna be maybe entirely all that well, and seeing if he's gonna be controlling his units well enough, or if he's gonna be basing his damage against the siege tower, and so far that seems to be exactly the case. With the chariots, they shouldn't be right now focused in the dryads, but rather when there is right now the screening, should be trying to go for the Chaos and be done with them. Thinking that's a bit of a mistake in there by Magyar. Could have been maybe sniping a few of them. On the other hand, question is if you don't do necessarily want to be getting rid of the Chaos like instantly. Because again, it's blocking a lot of pop currently. I mean, like, this is 24 population limit. This is a whole TC that he doesn't actually even have, for example, the third one. So maybe it's kind of like the exact situation again. Do not interrupt your opponent when he's making a mistake. Like, this is not like a complete mistake, because there was a reason for the chaos earlier, but now it's gonna develop into suboptimal unit based on what we have here. So I don't know, it actually could be somewhat useful to keep that as a bit of a trump card for Magyar, and he's gonna be having some good battle go in, and he can just kind of annihilate them instantly, and then charge into somewhat unprotected enemy base. But well, at any rate, it looks like it, though Kvoth is gonna be this time most probably succeeding with his 3rd TC on practically the first attempt. Though it has to be said that the first attempt is at 22 minutes of game time. So we could probably say that Magyar was blocking it for such a time as well. And hey Eric, thanks for the follow. Okay, and upgrades we're gonna be having still nothing, just the heavy charioteers and medium Kontari with double copper. Yeah, you can see really just Magyar doesn't entirely put as much of a stock into the upgrades. He really kind of like does not. A lot more focusing on having the units on the battlefield and trying to control them. So that's just like a quite a different approach to the gameplay than what we commonly see amongst current top players. And this is kind of like an important perspective, just to be having somebody who is basically disconnected from the game, gonna be playing a certain way, and just like you can be learning from that. Maybe something is not gonna be as useful maybe, but other parts could be potentially motivating you and inspiring you to do a few things differently. With Palace of course making very good sense here for the complete protection of the whole kind of like position there, as economically we having really low upgrades for Oranos. Like seriously low. Having just only irrigation at 23 minutes almost. That is almost nothing. Can see right now at least query. Economically is at least putting in the effort, Magyar. It's nice. And I wonder if this time we're gonna be having coinage on the caravans. There's a faraway siege works. And yeah, I was kinda thinking that's gonna be weird. Usually when you're gonna be having such a kind of like backdrop building on auto queue, it's gonna be probably producing more problems than help when you're gonna be battling so far away from that spot. Of course, earlier it was useful, but now he needs to be somehow figuring it out and blocking that auto queue. That's gonna be quite a bit terrible here. It's kind of like cute how he's constantly making the priests right, even in the previous game. As of course we do know that classic priest siege for Isis is typically like a really strong strategy against Atlanteans. And he's kind of like playing it halfway. Halfway there, and he doesn't even have all the upgrades, right? No, of course. He advanced through Ptach, sorry. Sure, nonetheless, I was going to say Nephthys, so we don't have anything like Spirit of Maat and whatnot. So that's also another upgrade that could be potentially quite a bit useful, frankly. Remembering what happened with the Thoth in the last game. But okay, bit of a... more like a scouting currently for Magyar, to be having a look where the opponent is potentially gonna be vulnerable. But really curious that we haven't started a trade yet here. Still gonna be apparently confident that he's gonna be fine on the gold, but oh well. That's gonna be somewhat fun here. As you can see on the top flank, we unfortunately for Kvoth do have quite a portion of siege towers, as he probably did, yeah, find the ones from the bottom. No, and therefore that's gonna be goodbye TC. Don't think there's a chance this is gonna be standing, even with the Kontari trying to get there. Immediately heavy. Can see copper and bronze so far with pretty good shockwave. That might be giving him some kind of chance. Also the gold mine unfortunately just about now abandoned through bottom, so the Purvudis are gonna be the next ones to be taken down. And Dragon, welcome to the stream, thanks for the bit. Noah's Kvoth, unfortunately therefore, TC Gonzo, and now it's going to be probably though most of the army Gonzo as well, because basically, yeah, this point Kontari are gonna be clearing both the priests and probably even the siege towers, and we are having just like one spearman here, and the rest are gonna be axemen for Magyar. Needs to be getting a bit more of the Spiros into the fight here to help him out. And as the second part of the units, yeah, it's gonna be, I'm thinking, even therefore clearer right now, cleaning off the posizione, but probably not entirely like full one. It's gonna be still harder for Kvoth to get the TC. And no, well protected here for Kvoth, sure, but nonetheless, Migdol, short wall, catapults, Goodbye TC. I think that's gonna be the progress here. Most probably something new. No, of course not from Magyar. And on the other side, we're gonna be having still the same as well on the military. Whereas economically, we have actually not moved anywhere at all. This is actually kind of alarming right now from Kvoth. Because as in the last game, he was having all the upgrades with the Gaia, and that basically allowed him to survive on the 2 TCs. That's something that's gonna be missing currently for him, and will be, therefore, not allowing him to just kinda like survive longer. Thinking that's something that might be shortening the game, possibly. Possibly it might. But well, at any rate, for the time being, he's gonna be pushed back. We just probably need to be in really a bit more barracks and a bit more spearmen. Did he switch off the auto queue here? No, he did not. It really, in my opinion, should be turned off. Otherwise, you can straighten out the economy somewhat okay. The flat control is missing there. No, well, just kinda hoping for the trade here finally. At about 26 minutes. But I'm also thinking that no, I also don't see any kind of movement on the other side. So even Kvoth doesn't have trade currently. Almost as if they were playing some kind of no trade challenge. And it's also kind of very interesting how, as you can see, Magyar is using the Pharaoh constantly for the fight. It's basically very kind of like low time of empowering somewhere. Even in the previous game, if I'm not mistaken, he was still using him commonly. Yeah, he was having Amenemnisu. That wasn't Amenemnisu in the last game. He was having like 5th one at the end. Right now he's having 6th one already. Just like fully using it as a unit. With the 17 damage that they have and that he has. It's definitely useful. And it also helps, of course, against the Dryads. Because the priests are just like really ineffective. It's not entirely as powerful. So it's also not entirely much of a common play. But on the other hand, you are also going to be quite commonly having Son of Osiris in the fight, so that can be, I guess, probably considered somewhat similar. To a degree, I guess. Oh well, look at that, we're getting actually base upgrades here for Magyar now, on the military. And we also haven't finished the Migdol on the left. Or rather, we probably did finish, but it got destroyed immediately. So that was not a bad plan. Nobody taking Eye of Horus. Nobody wanting to be having the stronger army here. Especially kind of winking at Kvoth. That would be really quite nicely useful. At least he got fortified TC. No masons, unfortunately. And you can see that Magyar's economy is quite a bit strained. And he's not even able to maintain the 160 population limit currently. For Kvoth, it's gonna be though similar. Tons of favor, by the way. So getting himself something a bit more would be also quite a bit useful. Well, unfortunately, the kind of like healing units with the priest during battle is not entirely as useful here. Because again, active healing, passive healing. In Age of Empires 2 it's really good. Because there you don't have the division. Legitimately you can be doing that. Typically you're gonna be having situations where one priest is under attack and another priest is healing him. So that's kind of common situation in AoE 2. But here it just unfortunately doesn't matter as much. Or is it all kind of like with the priest that they help heal even normally? It's only like the god powers or god powers, something like the healing spring. Because some things do heal normally. Basically even actively. But most don't. Most actually in Age of Mythology do have the double. But I'm just kinda not seeing it here. But they maybe don't have everything listed. Because sometimes Iperet was running out of space. But now I'm fairly confident that the priests are also having passive healing and active healing. Because you need to be usually stopping the unit if you're gonna be healing, for example, Pharaoh at the start, sorry, after eating some damage from animals. It should be that way. So therefore, it looks kinda impressive, the healing in the battle, but it's useless. Because you're gonna be healing like 0.1 hit point per second. So it's like practically nothing. And it won't be really useful. But the idea is somewhat correct. That's at least nice, therefore. As you can see right now, no, still basically same situation as in the previous game, just kinda keeping Kvoth off a TC. Kvoth somehow surviving all the time. But again, without the economy this time around, I don't think it's gonna be having as much of a fun time as in the Gaia time in game number 1. You can see still double copper. Military-wise, we are going to be having also still the same situation, nothing really changing whatsoever. So at this point, both are practically like locked in head-on fight. Now, and it seems like it maybe Kvoth is not even minding losing the TC that much. You can see he's kind of like barely able to keep the pop limit and not be in a complete zero on the resources. Bit of a shame he can't be using the favor in any way. No, and Magyar. And by the way, we are also locked in Heroic Age, both of the players. And we are at 30 minutes of game almost. As then, Magyar is getting actually a bit heavier currently. Oh, he would be very much liking the TC. And he's probably gonna be succeeding. There is the Pharaoh. Because he needs the empowerment for that, I guess. Of course, no coinage. How else? Trading like a boss? No. That's gonna be hard. Without the Pharaoh, this is gonna be hard to finish, so I'm thinking that really getting some towers over the Migdol first is probably gonna be somewhat of a good idea for Magyar. Just to be having some kind of semblance of a control. First, apparently siege works, really. I guess he just doesn't want to be pulling it from that much. No, it's not much of a distance, frankly. So that's not entirely that bad, but at any rate, can't say it about now. The archers are gonna be for Kvoth, able to push the enemy slightly further away. And does he have some opportunity to take it? Because probably doesn't have the echo for that still, right? Yeah, he's just like, no. This is right now where the missing economical upgrades are biting him. Right now it's obviously hard to get for him because he's just like not having resources for anything. And he just needs to be producing some army to keep from dying. But yeah, those like 10-15 minutes ago where he should have been getting the echo ups and he didn't find the timing for that is right now biting him in the arse because he just like doesn't have a chance to get the TC, even though he's like military wise winning the opportunities to try it. But the attempt simply cannot be capitalized upon. And now, even without the empowerment with so many villages, that's most probably gonna be getting finished because it's also gonna be making the fight a lot more effective because some of the units need to be focusing the TC to slow it down and that's gonna be making them very easy targets. Okay, at least a bit of a nice trade raid-in. Not a bad plan. Still kinda... I wonder if somebody said and told Magyar that he can be using coinage as well. And that is actually a very good upgrade. And that, for example, empowering trade is a fairly good idea as well for the Egyptian in the late game. But nonetheless, TC finished, and that's gonna be right about now the biggest problem, as you can be using even the villages as practically the siege weapons here. And yeah, that's where Kvoth is gonna be already having to call it a game. Still a bit of gold left, but nonetheless, he also doesn't have himself any kind of break trade. Oh, he's actually having the same trade as in the last game. Ah. Yes, of course. Classic zero trade. That also helps. But seems like that he was actually noticing it and was about to prolong it for something more reasonable, but it was unfortunately a bit too late. And for example, the extra pop limit, being low on TCs, could have been helpful, but really the biggest problem is that Kvoth simply missed the timings on the upgrades on the economy. And that's just like, is way too much of a handicap in the Atlantean late game. Because the late game is by itself lower than the other civilizations. So, yeah, you don't want to be handicapping yourself even more. But nonetheless, that was a nice couple of games here between Magyar and Kvoth. It was played on 2nd September, I think it was. Again, it was streamed live on his Twitch, and he's having at least the first game at minimum on his YouTube as well, if you are interested in his POV. So you might also want to visit that. No, and on the units, nothing really is gonna be right now made extra. At least the full copper line here, but 31 minutes, by the way. 31 minutes, and these are the upgrades that we have here. As how much of an intense game it was. And most of the times, as we were looking through the players, they were on really low resources. They really weren't floating practically like anywhere during the game. And yes, last check. No coinage. Like a bot. Did actually have Kvoth coinage. No, he didn't. But yeah, well, for him. Did not matter. But, you can say it now, again, very close score. And Kvoth actually still winning on score by 32 points at the end. Seems like most of the things carrying him, sorry, besides the improvements. That will be there for 3-2, 3-1, 3-1 and 18. It's gonna be 4-9. 4,900 resources more for Magyar. It's not that much. Yeah, because there wasn't a trade this time around to make for even bigger difference. Otherwise, military count also, again, quite a bit substantial. And I'm maybe curious that this time it was so high for Magyar, as he was still really heavy on the chariots, and kind of like elephants came only a bit later. That's true. And he was somewhat heavy in the classical on the slingers, and the axemen and spearmen were there a lot this time. It was also kind of nice that he somewhat adjusted, as opposed to the previous game where he was just like insisting very heavily on just the Migdol units. But it's also because he was heroic in there. He was having an 8.5 minute heroic age, whereas here, yeah, well, he was just like fully engaging in the classical. So it's obviously gonna be having different progress then. Nice extra budgets, heavy Contarius, sure as well for Kvoth in there. But as you can see, not much of a like big dents into the villages. Some raids here and there, but nothing too entirely tragic. Okay then, GG. This time Magyar kind of keeping the numbers a bit higher. Again, that's also because he was there for having a bit more barracks, guys. GG.